Hey guys, welcome back to Rad JBI. I'm JB. It's Friday and we're finishing up another great week here at the shop. Every week we usually have a good mix of different brands of suspension and bikes that we work on, but usually there is one common theme throughout the week. Often we do a lot of WP Pro components during the week. By that I mean a lot of it. Other weeks we'll get a lot of show components. This week we got a lot of Beta motorcycles in here, all the race edition bikes that come with the KYB suspension. It's all for the same rider. He just loves to ride bikes and he does a lot of different style of riding. So we're going to break down the 3 bikes that we worked on, what we did to it, and what this rider should expect when he mounts the suspension back up to his betas and goes out and rides. So let's begin with the first bike. That is a 2023 Beta 300RR. This bike will be ridden for what we call technical single track / hard enduro. This is going to be the softest setting we built for him and the most comfortable to ride. Reason for that is this style of riding, the speeds you ride at tend to be a lot lower in comparison to the other styles of off-roading that there is. So because of that, this spec that we built for him, which we laid out on our JBI suspension settings guide right here, has the softest spring rates for him and also the softest damping as well. Now, beyond our traditional or usual JBI suspension revalve on the components internally, we did a few other upgrades as well. For the front forks, we did our JBI volume spacer. So that way, during his hard enduro riding, while the fork is still plush and soft, it has a very nice progressiveness as the fork compresses through the travel. Also, we topped it off with our JBI Titanium Pro Perch to give it some really good bottoming in those last few inches of travel. This is really important for these hard enduro riders because oftentimes they have pretty hard slap down landings when they're riding. And when you have really soft suspension like this, it's nice to know that you have some really good bottoming resistance at the end of the travel. With the shock, we did a matching JBI suspension revalve as well. We also changed out the bladder cap on the bottom of every single shock. Reason being, the stock one has that rubber plug style fill for the nitrogen, and there's never a big fan of that. As often as they work, there's oftentimes that they don't work. By that, I mean they don't seal up and contain the nitrogen. At that point, the shock loses all its pressure and it loses very much the majority of its compression and damping abilities. So we have always resorted back to a bladder cap with a Schrader style fill. It's just much more reliable, easier to work on in service. And we just know that the probability of any gas leaking out is very, very low in comparison to the other style of bladder cap. We also did Q springs on all of the shocks. They have this beautiful, I call it Galaxy Black coating on it. But more importantly than that, they have a very good fitment for these shocks. These are the KYB 46 millimeter piston shocks with a 16 millimeter shock shaft. This would be a similar shock to what you see on the YZ 2-stroke models. We also did our JBI black bumpers on the bottom as well. Another reason for that is the stock bumpers tend to absorb moisture more than we like them to, and then also wear out and get hard much quicker than we like them to as well. Our JBI black bumpers are the same PUR foam material, but with a small rubber additive, which gives them that black appearance that helps seal the bumper, give it better UV protection, and allow the bumper to have a much longer service life than the OEM bumper. And on top of that, it is cheaper than the stock one. So with all this shit going on with inflation and prices going up, we're helping prices stay down on our JBI spec builds. So that covers the 300RR race edition bike that we did. The other set of suspension we did is for a 2023 430RR race edition. And this was set up to our Flowy single track setting. So we did a very similar revalve. This isn't as soft as our hard enduro spec. Reason being, we describe Flowy single track as a type of off-road riding where you typically have some momentum and speed as you ride. You're most commonly in second and third gear speeds when you ride. This does account for downshifting the first or some technical sections you're going to work your way through. And it does account for clicking up to the higher gears for some maybe fast fire roads or connections to different single track trail heads. But again, the majority of this style of riding is more that second and third gear speeds and momentum. So because of that, this setting has some firmer spring rates than stock, mainly because of the rider's height and weight. This individual is 6'2" and 200 pounds. So we have firmer springs in there. Again, a little bit firmer valving than our technical hard enduro riding setup. So that way he has some good hold up when he rides for that more higher speed and higher momentum style of riding. We did very similar componentry as well. Again, our volume spacer in there for good progression, and our JBI Pro Perch for good bottoming. And then we did a similar matching shock revalve as well. And then on the last bike we did is another two-stroke. That is going to be the 2023 Beta 300 RX Race Edition. And this was built to our soft moto / Glen Helen spec. This is for primarily riding at Glen Helen, or what we call soft moto / off-road. So think of this as much higher speeds than our Flowy single track. You're going to be commonly riding second, third, fourth gear. Glen Helen has a lot of downhills, so it's important that the suspension has a certain amount of hold up, so it's not diving too much as you go down those downhills, and it gets some pretty big braking bumps. So as important it is to have a very plush ride out there, it's also very important to have a setting that is not overly too soft. Now, we did minorly adjust the spring rates as well for this individual, and we did similar components as well. Again, our volume spacers for good progression through the fork, and our JBI Pro Perch for good bottoming the last few inches of travel. Now, this would be the stiffest valving setup out of all three builds that we did. Again, it's more of a motocross-based setup. Glen Helen does have some jumps, not the biggest ones, but it does have some, and the overall speeds tend to be higher than Flowy's single track style of riding. So this was really fun to work on. We're a really big fan of the Beta motorcycles. I've been working on these since about 2017, since my times back in Arizona and riding out there. So something we're really familiar with. We prefer to only work on the race edition bikes. So if you're riding the non-race edition with the SAC suspension, oh man, I feel for you. That is, you got an uphill battle with that stuff. So if you need to get better suspension for that, do yourself a favor and buy the KYB components. And in stock form, they work really well with our JBI spec settings. Man, we really take them to the next level. So what this rider can expect when he mounts this back onto his bike will be a smoother ride over the small and medium bumps, better hold up during aggressive riding, and then better bottoming resistance on those high impacts and jump landings. Thank you for tuning in to this video. All of the parts and services that we discussed you can find on ridejbi.com.